Welcome to Tech Smarter. My name is Abby Ritchie. I'm the tech guru with the Smarter service, and you can find me right here every Wednesday talking with people who are engaged in the age tech industry. It is a very exciting place to be. Aging services is just exploding in so many different areas, and it's an absolute honor and a privilege to speak with people who are actively improving the lives of our older generation. Today's episode is sponsored by Leading Age Arizona, and this show is brought to you by the Smarter Service. Now, if you are a senior living operator and you're struggling with resident tech support, and I know you are because, boy, residents have questions and their questions have questions. If you're struggling with that, the Smarter Service has worked out a way to professionalize this type of support. And if you have any questions whatsoever, go ahead and DM me on LinkedIn and let me help you with that and let us bring you a solution that'll work with you. Today, I am thrilled to invite onto this show David Sawyer of TSO Life. Welcome to Tech Smarter, David. It is a privilege to have you with us today.
Looking forward to it. Thanks so much for having me.
You're so welcome. David, could you share with us how you found yourself working with TSO Life, finding it, creating it, and then working with older adults? I'd love to hear some of your backstory, please.
Yeah, happy to. I like to joke that I'm the only one that found a way to start a company in a less luxurious place than a garage. I actually started in a college dorm room, in a room with 3 other guys. It was a small little room and there were 4 of us. And I started off after I actually attended the funeral of my grandmother. I was actually listening to many of her life stories and kind of realizing I never got to hear them directly from her. So we originally created TSO Life as a legacy preservation company, the story of life, and we were focused on being able to record the life stories of seniors and pass them on to future generations. And while doing that work, we ended up spending a lot of time in senior living. And something that really struck out to me was how impactful just sitting down and asking someone about their life was for the senior, how much they engaged and how much they enjoyed with it, how much we constantly heard people say, I feel seen now. And so we worked that into a program for operators, for a resident insight platform. And then essentially our company kind of grew from there. So right now we have over 6 different products serving over 1,500 communities, over 180 some odd thousand residents. And we do everything from the interview still to the resident insights to resident engagement, their apps, everything. So you name it, it's been a long journey. It's been very enjoyable to now be working in the senior living space for 12 years. I started it as a young kid with long hair, and now I'm an old man with even longer hair. So a lot of change and growth has happened.
Yeah, I'm so curious to hear about some of that change and some of that growth. But one thing I saw recently was something that you've rolled out, and that is called Minerva, which has to do with AI accuracy and truly just it being and growing those resident interviews. How does Minerva turn a simple conversation into data without losing the human touch?
Yeah, perfect question. And that's really where, again, I said the interview piece and the insights, that is our flagship Minerva product named after the Roman goddess of knowledge. Yes, I am that type of nerd. And so the real focus that we had there is how impactful just a one-on-one conversation is with a senior and how much valuable insight comes out of it. In just a 20-minute conversation, our system actually pulls out over 150 unique data points. And really how we've set up the software is a senior living associate would just sit down with a resident, they'd record the conversation using the TSO Life mobile app. That idea was sent back to us where we have AI that actually data mines and creates that digital resident profile. And you asked a very important question, which is how does it still keep that human element? And to me, it's the fact that we still have that human do the interview. What we found is having that associate sit down and just take time out of their day to get to make a new friend helps that resident feel heard. It makes them feel connected to the community. And we actually see that there's a strong correlation between residents actually staying in the community past the first 90 days and if they felt like they made a human interaction or a connection in that community. And that was one of the questions we always got is, hey, at some point, won't AI just do the interview? And I generally, as a technologist, hope the answer is no. I think AI that all of a sudden is doing everything for us, we lose the people element of what makes this industry so great. And so it's funny, I'm always the technologist on the far right side with some things, but at the same time, I'm also that person who says we still need to keep senior living a human-centered industry. And as we embrace new technology, we never want to lose sight on people are moving in for a community, and we need to keep that community at our thoughts and in our heart for how we engage with seniors every single day.
Yeah, we've experienced the same thing at the Smarter Service, where we're bridging the digital divide by providing hands-on support. We also provide virtual support, but we know that often just having someone sitting there with you, asking questions, having a resident repeat it back to them, getting in deeper, and just understanding, what their needs are, but having someone sit right by you and explain something makes a huge difference. So while AI is going to help us move it along and apply it appropriately, it's really having the tech concierge sitting side by side, or the staff sitting side by side and just asking those questions, right?
100%. I mean, I almost draw it to a parallel a little bit where some of the stuff is scary. New technology, you hear about these phishing things, you hear about people being scammed and hacked. And as we're seeing seniors want to engage and be more connected in the digital world without knowing what they're doing, at times they can open themselves up to risk. And having someone help build that confidence, I almost draw it in parallel to imagine being dropped in a football game and you've never played before, and they say hike and hand you the ball, and it's like, what do I do? I have people running at me. I'm supposed to yell at them. What do I do? And it's that same level of sudden anxiety, and really having that coach to say, here's where you go. This is how we get prepared for this, and how to make sure that you're then seeing the magical moment of what technology can do and alleviate the fears of having to get to that point is super impactful.
I love that football analogy. Like that can be so daunting. You just show up on a field and there's people coming at you and throwing the ball, and you're supposed to know all the rules. And yet I see this happening so frequently when it comes to technology with older adults. It's like we just hand them the device and say, here it is, right? And there's no manual involved. There's no explanation, no education around it. And for a working professional, this is acceptable. For an older adult who's a traditional learner, they require a basic foundation so they can build upon their knowledge, and their confidence grows through that.
Yeah, and we really see it again. It's funny. I just got a new tablet, and I opened up the tablet, and all that was the tablet, a charger, and then a QR code for me to scan and get the instructions on how to use it. And I am like, oh boy, we're moving away from any level of paper, any level of step by step, and you're just thrown into the deep end right away. And that's when seniors, that's their entry point right now, trying to get a tablet for the first time. I wouldn't know what to do with it. I'll tell you, I'm a technologist. I didn't even know what to do with it. I was staring at it. I hate QR codes with a passion. And I'm like, I ain't scanning that thing. And it took me 5 minutes to figure out how to even turn it on. And I'm pretty decent with computers.
Yeah, I know the feeling, and the struggle is real. I mean, that's really where we come in at the Smarter Service, and we just bridge that divide. So I want to head back to Minerva for just a moment, because, I want to talk about how a marketing team can use Minerva's data to give better tours and close more sales. Could you share that with us, please?
Yeah, so that's one of the really cool, impactful things. And what we find is the data we're able to collect from those interviews really become almost the source of truth for communities' lookalike audiences for marketing. It gives them their segmentation. It can tell them, hey, here are the groups of residents that we have. Here are some opportunities for us to go find new ones. And one of the things that our system does is it actually does prospect to resident friend matching. You put in a couple of just quick facts about a prospect coming in, it'll actually tell you which residents they could hit it off with based on a friend matching algorithm that we have. And so imagine if you have a prospect coming in this week into one of your communities that's a Patriots fan, and you get to go have them meet all the other Pats fans, and you get to invite them to the Super Bowl watch party that the community's doing. It's just such a more elevated experience. And that's one of the really big things that we're trying to drive the industry towards, is how do we go from a needs-based industry to a want-based industry? And I know everyone always says, oh, well, you always want to sell a need, not a want. But really, what we're finding is people are moving into senior living after fall when they need care, when they're at the end of their life. And if we're really building on that experience, making this be something people want to move in towards because of the community, because of the friends, because of the socialization, those are the residents that will stay a long time with you and be the bedrock for being able to have that longevity and that occupancy gains that everyone's chasing after. So that's really where our technology comes into place, is helping communities truly build a community aspect to it and bridge those connections across the community.
I absolutely love that. It's so smart. It is such a good way to create a connection when someone is touring your community. One thing that we found is that because we do these tech desks and we have like a genius bar in the community, anytime a family is doing a tour and they see the tech desk there and the tech concierge, they're like, "Ooh, this is a goodie. This is something that is a market differentiator from a community down the street." Just having that resident tech support available for a family member, for a resident, is huge.
100%. And again, because if it's not the community helping support it, it's that adult daughter that's getting that phone call every time that the remote's not working. So 100%, we see it day in and day out, and having those small things just really help families out a lot.
Yeah, another area that I've seen TSO Life grow into is in the wellness bundle. And you've been able to bundle brain health and social data together. How does this help an operator move from being reactive to being proactive with a resident's health?
Yeah, great question. And actually, where that all starts is one of the first things we do as part of that interview process is we actually do quality of life assessments for every single resident. And we're using evidence-based scales. And the cool thing about that is it then helps operators compare apples to apples to data. So we can actually go look at social determinants of health data and compare a community's health score to the surrounding zip code. And we can actually give that insight and saying, hey, a resident living at home is actually X% more isolated than if they were living in your community. They're having higher food insecurity risk, more concerns about transportation. So you're actually creating a safer environment for their loved ones. And one of the things that we then do is we've invested heavily in our data and insights team to actually go out and look at all these different areas of quality of life. And we've actually mapped all of the great content we have on our platform and correlated to those different levers of quality of life. And so when a resident is scoring low in creative and they have an interest in painting, here's the content that they can do that would improve those scores and lead to that improved quality of life. So our whole model is focusing on turning engagement around keeping residents busy to truly impacting their quality of life, and then being able to actually have the data to show the improvements that they're making along the way. One of the big things that we just focus on as a whole is when you think about overall health of a resident, you have the clinical piece, but then typically just as important is that social piece. And we're seeing that more and more, that social isolation, clinical depression, those are bigger areas for declining health than almost anything on the clinical side. So being able to have those two things work in unison to lead to overall health is where we're trying to aim for. We've seen the EHRs and the EMRs in the space do a great job of building out those clinical workflows. How do we think about that social and engagement side just as structurally, just as interactively, and just as strategically?
I love it. It's so smart, so necessary. When I was at Leading Age National back in November in Boston, there was a lot of discussion about the wellness tools and how integrative these are becoming, because the resident is not just their clinical data, it's also their psychological data, like you mentioned, and getting them involved in things that they love and things they enjoy doing, and really personalizing opportunities for them so they can continue to find purpose and fulfillment in their life. And I just am thrilled to hear that TSO Life is also being proactive with this whole wellness.
Yeah, and that's one of the big things too that we really drive for. If you look at the clinical side, there are clear best practices. There are scales. There's assessments. There's interventions. There's clinical steps you do. Right? If somebody has diabetes, here's their care plan. Right? And that's evidence based. You have metrics that we're holding it to see if their scores are going up or down. They need more insulin. I'm pretending I know anything about diabetes here, so bear with me. I think that ties to diabetes, insulin, right? Yes, we're getting nods. Excellent. Okay.
It's okay. I'm a doctor, and so are you. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. Oh, geez. Speaking of, don't contact me for medical advice ever, please. But with that, that's where we're looking to get on that engagement side too. What are the evidence-based tools that are available that clinicians use to study social isolation, to study depression? And when they have it, what interventions would a psychiatrist do for their patients? Those are the type of things that we think about in the same way for our engagement platform. How do we identify social isolation? How do we identify quality of life risk or SDOH factors? So when we really kind of think about these things, we really wanted to have a true social science aspect to it. One of the things that I've always seen is when we think about engagement, it's almost more marketing than it's always historically been actual clinical interventions. And our kind of viewpoint is we want to get really smart and very precise about what it is that we're trying to improve. It's not the David Sawyer happiness scale, right? We're not pulling stuff out of our rear and calling it science. We're actually using evidence-based data to put these things together that becomes so impactful and so important. Because the way I see the next couple of years is at some point with what we're seeing with value-based care and changes to M&A plans, social intervention therapy is going to be more and more refundable and more dollars will be flowing into those areas. And for operators to tap into those funding sources, they need to have the data to back up what it is that they're doing. And that data needs to connect back to CMS. So I know I just went on a long tangent and rant, but we are thinking very deeply about this and getting very involved at the high levels to make sure that what we build out, operators can actually commercialize upon.
I was tracking with you for most of it, and one thing I heard you say was about the growth, about the data, which is so necessary for scaling a business and for having investors see the greater picture. We do talk to a lot of investors here on Tech Smarter because that whole piece of the age tech innovation is huge. And one thing we always talk about is just scaling. You recently raised to Series B to scale. I'd love to know what's the hardest part about scaling personalization across dozens of communities?
Oh boy. I'll tell you, as you scale an operation, you get past the product and dev stage, the biggest headache becomes HR always. That's what I quickly learned is people, the bigger you get, the more people involved, the more people problems become just the core thing you deal with as a CEO. But one of the things that we really think about is scaling personalization is you need the systems in place to be able to get that individualized data, to then be able to educate your algorithms, to then make those personalized feedbacks. The thing that makes Netflix so powerful is they have everyone's watch history, right? If I watch Below Deck one day, I'm probably going to go watch The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City the next. Yes, I did just watch that crossover episode, and that, of course, was on my brain here. And so they have all that great data to know what to do next. And that's where we get really focused on is being able to collect all that great data to then see, okay, this intervention worked with this resident. Here's another one with similar things. This is what we can try as well. And so really it's a data structure and architect collection standpoint that we really focus heavily on as we scale. And that's where it needs to come into play.
So let's talk about it then state by state or by region. And, Florida is booming, but incredibly competitive right now. How can, for instance, a Florida operator use resident data like you're talking about to stand out from the community down the street?
Yes, the big thing we always focus on in senior living is not necessarily how we help communities compete with each other, but how do we help the industry elevate to be more attractive to everyone? there's more seniors that are living at home that could be filling our communities than we could ever build if we're actually doing a good job in marketing. And so our big focus is not how do we help take a resident away from another community down the street, but how do we help the 10 that are sitting at home that are socially isolated and lonely find the right community that they can then call home. And that's where we're really focusing heavily on right now, is going more towards the prospect side of things and saying, hey, have you thought about finding a community that might match your lifestyle, that you want to play bridge, that you're doing it currently on Yahoo Games? And how about, we find you a community where every day at 10 a.m. after your coffee that they bring you in bed and they give you a warm meal every day. Here's 4 residents you can go spend 2 hours playing bridge with. And then here's another group that walks every afternoon. How do we help prospects see that side of senior living, not just view it as the clinical side, as the I can't help bathe myself anymore, so I need help, but the I'm going to build a community around them. And I can now have a social group that I get up every day excited to interact with. And so we're really big on helping the prospects find the community that matches those personal experience drivers. And if we can help every prospect do that, I think occupancy will never be a problem for senior living ever again.
Interesting. So, you mentioned earlier moving from needs to wants, and I believe I've heard you say you want to move the industry from nursing care to lifestyle experience. So this sounds like really tapping into their lifestyle choices. How does the AI help you figure out what a resident wants before they even ask for it?
Yeah, a great question with that. And again, kind of going back to that Netflix model. So if we hear a resident say, hey, I really enjoy playing blackjack, right? Our system knows, okay, we have 100,000 other blackjack players. 82% of them also enjoy playing poker, right? Even though that resident didn't vocalize saying, I enjoy playing poker, we're able to use these lookalike matches to say they probably would be interested in branching out into that as well. And so when you think about just that example, we now get to do that tens of thousands of times with all other data that we've collected and make those more strategic recommendations for people to find new groups, to find new hobbies, so that they don't necessarily have to vocalize every want or desire, but we've collected enough data to be predictive about what that next best personalized step is for what we can do for that resident to get that new experience. We model a lot of our software off of things like Disney or, believe it or not, Vegas. Vegas knows what I want better than I do. They have a great job of knowing I need to get a free bet for this blackjack table and a dinner to this restaurant because I eat steak every time. If they want me to go, they know what to send me an email to get me there. It's that same level of knowing that residents that well of what they want to see next is what we strive for.
And with this deep personalization, how do you keep a resident's information private and secure?
That is something that we are massively, massively big on. We do not sell any of our data anywhere. It's in our bylaws of the company that we will not do this, right? We were very big and structured on how we kind of set these things out. Because we recognize that we do get deeply personal insights from every single resident, and there needs to be that trust factor there as well. So we never send any data to any third party about any resident. Everything on our site is kept, anonymous. It's multi-factor level authentication to access any of it. Everything is encrypted in rest and in transit. So, we follow the best protocols possible to make sure that residents' data is kept safe and private. And that, again, we're being good stewards and fiduciary of that information as well.
Yeah, we found with the residents that we work with that there's a ton of fear around their information being exposed. We find that the more that we can coach them through it, explain it, how to be safer when they're online, when they're answering questions, we're able to turn that fear into tech confidence. And once a resident has that, their whole world then opens up to them. I want to focus just a little bit on staffing because it tends to be the number one struggle in senior living today. How does your technology actually save a caregiver time instead of giving them one more thing to do?
Yes, the whole goal with all of this is what we find is we did a survey on staff, and basically we're trying to look at what gets them to stay with a community because staff turnover is so huge. Aside from pay, the number two thing they said was the bonds that they form with the resident. And them finding everyone joins this industry because of a deep bond, a deep calling, a passion almost. And how do we help the associates find those resident connections? And that's exactly what we serve up to them. So when someone's going in to do a med pass, rather than them getting to do more tasks, we give them insight saying, hey, this resident you're about to go meet with is a football fan. Ask them what their Super Bowl prediction is, right? I just took that interaction from a task to a personalized connection I get to have with that resident. And that's really big on what we're focused on doing, not necessarily giving them more work to do or more tasks or automating things per se, but turning every experience into a deeply personal one that fills up their social cup, as we like to say.
I love it. I love it. I want to now shift to the future of engagement and engagement on demand. What does a typical day in the life look like for a resident in a fully tech smarter community?
Yeah, so I mean, there is a lot that we get really excited about. Is one, in a perfect world, all of their different softwares will talk to each other. It will all coordinate and collaborate, whether it's AI agentic conversations or actual APIs that flow much better. And then we can start getting very prescriptive across the board on everything. And so an example I have of this is if a resident's going to order a meal for dinner, they'd be able to see all the options, sure, on the menu, but then they would be able to see, hey, this meal would be really good with my current medications. This one might flare up this. This one would probably mess up with this that I had for the morning because of the medications I'm on. So helping residents not necessarily take freedom away from them, but help them understand and make better decisions to impact their overall health and wellness. And that's really a big thing that I think we're trying to move to as an industry is how do we help residents just understand more and make better informed decisions? And that's really where we're trying to go to is help residents be able to have that opportunity to do that. And really in a fully engaged world, I think technology will help them find more things quicker. So we always talk about engagement on demand.
Uh-huh.
Again, I'm a nerd. So when I was playing MMOs or my World of Warcraft back in the day, I wanted to go do a specific raid. I could click looking for group and said, this is what I want to play. And the system would find other players that I could go do that thing with. How do we have that built into the resident experience as well? I want to play bridge at 2 o'clock today. And then the system just goes, finds that group for me and makes it and puts it on my calendar. So really our whole concept is going from engagement being a, hey, I'm going to print out a calendar once a month and this is what you're stuck doing. And if I want to go do bridge, I have to wait till Tuesday at 4 p.m. Instead, I can say, I want to play it today, and the system will actually make that engagement for me. And that's what we've been building out a lot lately. And we're really excited to have that come out this year to communities near you soon.
That's super cool. Are there any other crystal ball predictions you want to look into or add at this point?
I will say that this is going to be, over the next year or two, the tech renaissance that senior living will go through. I think we went through this when we went from the paper-based records to the cloud for the first time. We're going to see a similar explosion of tech, and the next big companies will being made and grown right now. There is more outside capital entering this space from both the REIT side and also the PE side than ever before. And they're writing bigger checks to go solve harder problems than ever before. And that becomes really exciting for operators. If they pick the right technologies that are building the right things, they will have functionality that has never been seen before, and it will transform the way that they operate.
Amazing. Absolutely love it. David, how can people connect with you for more information?
Yeah, I got my LinkedIn and also my personal email, david.sawyer@tsolife.com. Yes, I'm a CEO that actually is fine with his email being in public.
I love it. Thank you so much for joining us. And for those who are watching now and watching this recorded, thank you for your participation and for your comments. We absolutely love it. And we will see you right back here next week. Goodbye.